Okay. Hi everyone. Oh, happy Thursday. I think some people are taking a super long weekend. We've all got a long weekend coming up ahead of us. So this is actually a really nice, I personally am taking most of tomorrow off to go out for the long weekend. And I find that the holiday weekends are a really great time for me to sort of pause and reflect on what it is that I've accomplished in this last period of time, and actually, more importantly, what my intentions are for the period of time ahead of me. And sometimes that's the year, sometimes it's 5 years, sometimes mostly it's like, what do I want to do between, in the next week or month? So whatever way you want to pause and sort of, set some intentions for yourself about the coming time period, I think it's a really beautiful and healthy thing to do um, for yourself. So I share that because I think the timing is fortuitous in that today's work is actually kind of getting back to basics. And the original intention behind A League of Their Own was a safe place for us to gather and share ideas about career growth and development, and also to share some of my experiences, but also bring in speakers who have had experiences in developing their own careers in ways that are really unconventional. There is not a single one of us, and this is pretty endemic at Google in a positive way, is that most of us have really sort of unconventional backgrounds. And you all know a lot of my stories, which involve, this is a second, if not third or fourth career for me. I certainly, actually, I was just pinging with somebody earlier today who's my age, and I was laughing and saying, the job that I have today didn't exist when I was in high school. So they said, oh, I bet this is the job that you wanted when you were in high school. And I laughed and said, Google didn't exist when I was in high school. And there was no such thing as a marketing role like the one that we have today. Digital marketing really didn't exist, and so on and so forth. So my role really truly didn't exist, and a lot of none of your roles existed 20 years ago either. So we're all evolving all the time, and so the intention for A League of Their Own was really to create safe space where we could share different paths and journeys and things that we've experimented with, and then help inspire all of you to explore some of those paths yourself. And during our last league session, what we realized is that a lot of you had really struggled with setting your plans together, putting your plans together. And what I mean by plans is, for those of you who haven't been here or listened to a lot of these talks yet, at our very, very first League of Our Own meeting, we talked about setting a plan. And this is something that has been really foundational for me in my life, is regularly setting a plan. And my plan looks like a 1-year, 5-year, 10-year, and 20-year plan. And I have a notebook, and I update that notebook every January because that's when my cycle is, and that's when I choose to do it. But you can choose to do it whenever you'd like. And I sit down and I work out what my plan is for the next year. And in my case, I think about the next calendar year, January to January. What are my goals for that next year? And you can have all kinds of goals. You can have health goals and travel goals, all kinds of personal goals. This is really career focused. But, and this is something I want to be explicitly clear about, and James and Pav and I have had lots of deep conversations about this point. Your career goals are not in a vacuum. They're not in a vacuum. In fact, the best career goals, the most actionable career goals, are ones that incorporate the rest of your life goals. So when you're working on your 1, 5, 10, 20-year plan, I'd like you to actually think, this is for the intention of your career, but I'd like you to think about the rest of your goals. So in my case, when I started this practice, I actually started doing this as a teenager, I still am very nerdy. And like most teenagers were probably working out like what party to go to. And I was like, I'm going to sit down and write out my life plan. I don't know. So, but it has served me really well. And I actually, if I go back, and in my case, I don't have it written down anymore from my teenagers, but when I think back to what my original goals were as a teenager, sure, this job didn't exist today. Like I'm at that 20-year mark in my career. So this job didn't exist back then. The job that I have today did not exist back then. I think I said that reverse earlier. But I'm actually not that far off from what my goals were for my 20-year mark. And it turns out what my goals were for my 20-year mark. I think I've shared this with a bunch of you, but I wanted to be a United States Senator. And the reason I wanted to be a United States Senator was because I wanted to help a lot of people. I wanted to be in a position of influence. I wanted to help lift the voices of those who either could not speak for themselves or create a space for them to speak for themselves. And so actually a lot of the work that I'm doing today, it does fulfill those core tenets of what it was that I was interested in with that US Senator role. So the purpose of today, I have shared a lot of these stories and journeys and other talks. And so if you don't know a lot of these stories and journeys, please go and listen to some of the earlier recordings from A League of Their Own or some of the other talks that I've shared. Because I think you'll find some inspiration from those journeys. But what we wanted to focus on today is actually enabling you, helping you guys have a workshop to work out your 1, 5, 10, and 20-year plans. So lucky that you're right here with me. Poor thing. Oh my gosh. Should have done. So you're going to get to be my guinea pig today.
I can't wait.
I know. Okay. Yay. So because we're here in person, we'll just give you some good visuals. If you would, I would actually suggest, for partly to help everybody, why don't you tear out 4 pieces of paper and do right on the top of them 1, 5, 10, and 20. And for those of you guys working independently, open up your notebooks, open up your pieces of paper, whatever it is you want to do. If you're working with a pad of paper like this, it's kind of nice to put out the 4 pieces of paper. And right at the top of each of those pieces of paper, 1, 5, 10, or 20. Now, the next step is for you to write maybe on the 1 page, it's 2022. And for reference, you might want to write down how old you are. So I'm just going to say, just for giggles, I mean, I'm 45 years old. So 20 years for me means I'm going to be 65. Luckily for you all, that's not so. Your 20 years, you're going to be much younger than that.
Math is hard.
Math is hard. So let's say you're 25 years old. In 1 year, you'll be 26. In 5 years, you'll be 30, and so on. But suddenly, when you're thinking about, okay, I'm 25 years old now, in 20 years, I'll be 45. Holy shit. Kind of, yeah, I just saw a bunch of you. You're like, your eyebrows went up. You're like, oh my gosh, it's a big difference, right? And you might even, it's 2022. If you want to, it depends on how you think. If you want to, you can add, what year that will be for you too, if that's helpful for you. So thank you for doing the math. It'll be 2023, 2027, 2033. I'm like, and no, what's the one? No, 2043. No, 2042. We're off by 1-ish.
There we go.
Okay, there we go.
So we use sheets for, guys.
There we go. Yeah. And I know I've shared this before too, but I find it really helpful to do this physical, in a journal. Thank you everybody for writing this down. You can do this on a doc, but I think it's really helpful to actually write it down and visually look at it. So I'm going to start picking on some of you and say, and first I'll share a personal story, which is that when I started, when I was 25 years old and I did this, I remember being really struck by the 20-year mark and thinking, 45 years old, shit, like, that's old. And what do I want to have? Like, who do I want to be when I'm 45 years old? And I realized that when I was 45 years old, I wanted to be a mom. So I actually grounded this experience, this exercise, in my personal goals, not in my career goals. So for me, that was a really good starting point, and I could kind of work backwards from that. I share that with you because that might be something that's useful or helpful for you, but it might not. So I'm going to put some of you guys on the spot and say, yeah, I'm going to put some of you guys on the spot and just ask you. For some of you, it'll be easier to think about what you want to accomplish in 1 year, and others of you, it'll be easier to think about what those big goals are in 20 years. So, Rebecca, what comes up for you in 1 year or 20 years? What comes up for you? Which one of these is easier for you to grasp, and what are some things that come up right away?
I think I felt like you were gonna ask me.
I think everybody was sweating, and suddenly everybody was looking down. Don't call on me.
It's like in the classroom, like that's what everyone does. I feel like the shorter years are easier just because I just started at Google, so I feel like I have a more of a short-term view of things as I like start ramping up on things. So I think it's just like in the next year is hitting my expectations
Yeah.
and doing that and being a helpful team member. So just very basic things right now. I'm sure more will come when I hear other people's.
Rebecca, what you just shared is brilliant.
Oh,
It really is.
Nice.
It really is. I mean, so for some of us, the 1 year exercise is hard. For some of us, it's easy, and vice versa. I rarely do I find somebody who says, "Oh, 5 years is really easy for me." Usually it's like one of the extremes. Is there anybody else who'd like to share like what they're looking towards? And you guys can go ahead. I see some of you are already, writing down. You're already putting some notes down. Does anybody else have any goals that they would like to share and they think would be helpful for the rest of the group?
I think for me, it's easier to look near term, just like kind of how I'm programmed and wired, even though I don't even know what I'm having for lunch like tomorrow. That's always a big challenge. But some of the things I think about is just like healthy relationships in my life, not only working relationships, but personal relationships. And then overall, I think for me, just overall well-being. So that's kind of like the physical component in terms of creating time and space for me to have physical outlets,
Yes.
but also making sure from a balanced perspective with work and kind of personal life that one is not overtaking the other in terms of those things. And man, 20 years from now, I don't even want to know.
But actually, Ryan, what was beautiful about what you just shared is that those 3 core buckets are applicable for every stage of your plan. And I actually would encourage you to write that down on all 4 pieces of paper. And what will happen, because right now we're grounding ourselves in what our bigger life goals are, or in this case, your core principles, your core tenets are, that will help guide the rest of your work. James did a really great job on this work. We did this work together about a year ago, one-on-one, and he had an incredible aha from this work. James, do you want to share that journey?
I put happiness on top of each of the kind of quadrants of which you kind of did too, Ryan, in terms of like, all right, well-being. And Tara was right to say like those can actually fit in a 1 year, a 5 year, a 10 year, a 20 year. context, and then just kind of building out my goals from that broader goal of like, all right, I want my career decisions, my personal decisions to really lead to just a broader sense of happiness and well-being, which was just a useful exercise to evaluate kind of where I was at currently and where I wanted to go, or thought I wanted to go, just looking at it through my goals, through short-term and long-term, through that lens of like what makes me happy, and what will make me happy in the future, and then setting goals based off of that. And they've already changed, like, which is the beauty of it, right, Tara? And this exercise, I think, which is why it's worth revisiting, you know, biannually, annually, is it's
Yeah.
like, hey, maybe the things that I thought would make me happy or do make me happy a year ago don't today. And you got to kind of
Totally.
pivot your roadmap off of that. But I think having that through line helped me a lot, just kind of organize and
Yeah.
ideate around this exercise.
I love where James landed with this is, you know, his core North Star, if you will, is happiness. And then in that case, you know, James and I spent a lot of time figuring out, okay, how do you define happiness? Right? So what are the things that bring you happiness? Is it travel? Is it time with your friends? Is it, you know, getting a dog? Is it and you know, is it picking up a new hobby? Is it like it could be anything, but that's for you to define for yourself. And if you have that North Star or Ryan, sort of those core principles that you just shared, I think that really dramatically influences everything, all the other work that we're about to do. So it looks like a bunch of you are, a few of you are still writing, which I love, but a lot of you are not. So I'm going to go to the next step in this exercise, which is what tends to be the next step that's easiest for me is going to that 1 year piece of paper and starting just to like brain dump, literally brain dump. And Rebecca, this goes back to your comment earlier, like, okay, I know what I need to do in the next year. And maybe it's really just focused on your career. Like my goals for the next year, I want like there's, you know, Olivia, to pick on you, you know, G1, we've got some like big initiatives for G1. I want to land those initiatives. I'm really excited about, you know, I've got these new opportunities that Naomi has presented to me. Olivia, I'm speaking as though I'm you. I don't know, I'm doing a really awkward job of it. But, you know, Naomi's given me some stretch opportunities. I'm learning a lot in those. I'm excited about that. I really want to nail that. And I also really want to learn about this, you know, learn more about, you know, demand gen campaigns or whatever it is. So just brain dump and write down everything that comes to mind for you about your goals for the next year. And these are usually pretty tactical. I'm doing mine also at the same time. Good to update those things.
How often do you look back at yours throughout the year?
A lot.
Really?
I keep the notebook in my nightstand. And sometimes I'll go back and one of the best things in the world is going back and flipping through that notebook and looking at what I've written down like 12 years ago. It's so, I can't even explain to you the rush that I get from looking at what
What was the goal 10 years ago? And it's
Yeah.
now in the rear view.
either in the rear view or sometimes it's like I laugh at them and go, oh, remember when I thought I wanted that?
Awesome.
Yeah, so something I shared with you those previously is that, I was in the wine industry for 20 years. And so at one point, I wanted, my goals were very much focused on the wine industry and what I wanted to achieve next in the wine industry. And one of my goals was to own a vineyard and winery. And I did that. And it was not nearly as much fun as I thought it was going to be. So it's really funny to go back and look at that and be like, oh, geez, I wish I could go back and tell my younger self, like, just skip that. You don't want to do that. I know that's written on your goals. I know you think you really want to do that, but it costs a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of heartache. But that's hindsight. But the interesting thing is, I would say what I've written down, I've achieved at least 90% of, like a crazy amount of it.
Yeah.
And that's what they say. There's a bunch of science and I've read all about it and I can't remember any of the details right now, but if you're intentional about things and you write things down, you're significantly more likely to actually achieve these things. And that's what this process is. Do you want to share any of your 1-year goals? Is there anything that feels safe
Safe to share.
to share?
There is one project that I have been stewing and thinking about for years that I'm like, it's just time. Like I've been at Google and Device and Services for 4 years now. There's this incredible photographer that lives here in the Bay that I'm like, she would be the perfect Team Pixel member. And I'm like, it's just time to make this happen. I know enough people to have enough pitch decks to at least try.
Yeah.
And if it's no, and we can't give her a Pixel phone, which makes no sense, or if she
Yeah.
says no,
Yeah.
that's one thing. But it's like an idea of my own that I have never pitched that I'm like, it's time. I don't want to sit on it
Good.
anymore.
Good for you. That takes confidence.
Yeah, I think it took like 6 months of, do I want to do this? Do I not?
Yeah.
To decide like it can happen in the next 12 months.
It's clear to me that you are deciding that it can happen with a degree of believing in yourself. And so that's really cool to see.
I know that if there is resourcing for it, I
Yeah.
know that it's a good idea for our brand. But if it's no, if the answer is no for reasons outside of my control, I think it's more of like knowing that it's time for me to take this risk.
Yeah.
Not necessarily like
Exactly.
it's time for Pixel.
No,
It's like, okay, well,
But that's what I hear is that this is actually about you.
yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Anybody else have anything that they feel inspired by Lily's comment? Oh, bye, Pav.
I have to drop too, but thank you for the reminder to revisit my roadmap, like more than just once a year. I think this was a great, and give me time to think about it. I love this tool, as you know, Tara, and appreciate the time and space to think through it.
Absolutely. And, I encourage those of you that are on, bring this back to your teams. It's a really simple process, but it's also hard and it's effective if you invest the time in it. So thank you, James.
I already have, as Alexis knows. So
Oh, good, good.
We did this together. It was really, really helpful and good to revisit.
Awesome. Alexis, do you want to share anything about your 1-year goals?
Yeah. So I wanted to focus on learning as my main objective. And then building confidence in the things that I learn. So not only mastering like my scope that I have, but also driving in my scope. So I guess like taking on more leadership positions for me to create more work for myself versus just executing on works assigned to me.
Yep.
And then also like being more comfortable with navigating Google as a whole. I feel like at my 6-month mark, I've gotten a lot more comfortable working within such a large organization, but I would love to see even more like confidence within that. And then I also had like overarching goals, I guess, for like my entire life that I feel like I solidified through this exercise.
Great.
So it was like 1, focus on health. Don't sweat the small stuff. So don't like stress out so much about life. Like build wealth for myself and my family. Maintain strong relationships with my friends and my family. Follow my interests and learn skills and build confidence in them. So I'm trying to like implement all of these overarching goals into like each stage of my life, which might look a little bit different depending on my age. But yeah, this is a cool exercise. I feel like I haven't like, it's a good way to think about life, I feel like. So thanks for like bringing this to us.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Okay, so we've done our 1 year. Let's invest some time in our 20-year. Scooch on down, Lily.
This one scares me the most.
To the 20-year page. Olivia, like just top of mind, what did we say in 2042? Oh my God, that's a big year. 20 years from now, do you want to be retired? Do you want my job? Do you want to go be running? Do you want to be a school teacher? Do you want to go back to school and become a school? Like the sky's the limit, right? Do you want, what is your long-term vision for yourself?
I don't know. It's a hard question because I feel like I'm interested in so many different things, but I think the like theme is that I definitely value like independence. So I resonate with like building wealth building wealth in terms of as a means of freedom. So not really as much for like material things, but more just so it allows for more possibilities, like taking time off, traveling, like helping my family, like doing unique experiences. So that's something I'm interested in. Also, I think traveling is definitely something that I'm interested in doing more of. My short-term goal is actually to do 30 countries next year. So my like 30 before 30.
What?
So I would hit it at 27. So that's something that I'm
I gotta hear. Wait, how many countries do you want to go to next year?
Before
Oh,
30,
sorry, no,
all
like in
30.
Yeah.
I also love that.
in
So you're
total.
okay. So you're at 27 countries right now.
I'm at 28. I'll do 29 before the end of this year, and then my goal would be to hit 30 early or hit 30 next year, and then hit it at like 27. Yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah. See you, Linda. Yeah. That's amazing.
So we'll see. I need to figure out what countries to add to my list. But yeah, I think that would be my overall theme is kind of not being bored, like flexibility, freedom. Like those are kind of some of the tenets that I really value.
Yeah, the freedom one is really interesting and really resonates with me. So something that I've always thought about is how important it is to have financial independence.
Mhm.
So this is something that for me, I realized my dad died when I was a teenager, and I had the life experience of my mom suddenly being a widow and having 3 teenage kids. And she had always worked, and so she continued to work. But I saw firsthand, I was like, holy shit. You know, my mom was in a better position than a lot of women would be. But if you were a full-time stay-at-home mom, and the breadwinner suddenly died, that would make you very vulnerable. And so that, you know, is my personal story, and how it has shown up for me in my adult life is making sure that I could always financially provide for myself. And, you know, before I had kids, I knew I needed to be able to provide for my children. And what it came down to, Olivia, was knowing that I had options. Knowing that, like, let's say I was in a bad situation, I could financially afford for me and you know, to take care of myself and my children and get to a better physical space, or knowing that you know, maybe I wanted to travel, and you know, knowing that that could be an option for me. So those are kind of like, again, Olivia, actually I really resonate with what you shared, because in my case it's never been about having a fancy home or, you know, fancy cars or any like material things. As I mean, I like nice material things, but I don't need the best fanciest things. And for me it was far more rooted in having options. So that might be something that you all resonate with as well. So 20-year vision, right? Sia, to catch you up, we're all working on our 20-year life goals. And if you have a piece of paper and a pen, write them down. What do you want to be doing in 20 years, Sia? I feel like you've already got this figured out.
I have my North Star, and I don't know how I'm gonna get there, but I have the North Star, which I guess is the important part. But I want to have my own like production company and make like entertainment, like TV shows and movies. So that's like my 20-year vision. Don't know how I'm gonna get there, but yeah.
I love that. Well, I will be 65 years old in 20 years. It's really old.
Not really old.
No, it's really, really old. I think you kind of qualify for AARP or something when you're 65. Anyway, what
My
I
parents are almost that old, and they are so fun and interesting. So
I can't believe you just told me I'm as old as
you're not as old. No, 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 no. My parents
Oh
are
no,
old.
they're 65.
Yeah.
Okay. That's sorry, that's much better.
Years in the future, ma'am. Come on.
Okay. Oh my gosh, that was
I know.
I was
That's
really
really
hard for
really
us. Freaking out. Yeah, math is not our strong
really
suit
struggled
here.
with math in this room.
Yikes. Really glad your parents are not 45. Okay, so one of the things that I have come to recently is that in about 20 years, I would like to be an appointee to the United Nations Council on Equity. And something that I care a lot about is equal education opportunities, equal health opportunities, reproductive rights, and so on and so forth for women around the world. Women and men around the world. And the United Nations has this council. I follow it very closely. I followed it for years and years. And just in the last 6 months, I was like, duh, like that's something that obviously, like that, I've been following this for years. I obviously really care about it. This should be on my 20-year roadmap. So that's something that I'm looking to and have already started to kind of make some have some conversations actually with the United States representative who's currently on that United Nations Council. And I'm going to go meet with her in person. Sia, when Kui moves to Switzerland, I'm going to go to Switzerland, and this woman is currently working out of Geneva, the United States representative is, and I'm going to go spend time with her. So I'm actually already, this is the power of intentionality. Like, I realized that was something that really mattered to me, and I'm now slowly working towards how to make that happen 20 years from now. So this is I'm playing the long game. We're all playing the long game on this 20-year thing.
This might be too personal of a question, but when you talked about like one of the first times that you did this,
Yeah.
your 20-year goal was to be a mom.
Yeah.
Which is very personal and like a part of your non-work life.
Yes.
Do you feel like now looking at your 20-year, it's like the first one that you're thinking of is for you
Yeah.
as opposed to
Yeah.
interesting.
So 20 years from now, my kids will be fully launched. I mean, my kids are now 10
Yeah.
and 12 years old. So 20 years from now, like they could have their own children. I mean, I could theoretically be a grandmother.
Yeah.
So my 1-year plan, my kids' happiness is in my very highly ranked in my 1-year plan. My kids' happiness is an assumption that I'm making at the 20-year plan.
Nice.
So that's
Cool.
that's a great question. And it's something that has evolved for me. It went from like this idea that someday I did want to become a mom and have kids. It actually, but then now I am a mom. So then for years it was all about, like raising children to be strong. I have 2 girls, so strong, independent women has been I started to saying that to them when they were babies. Like, repeat after me. I am a strong, independent woman. I'm a strong, independent, like little 2-year-olds. So, so at that point, they are launched. I'm still loving them. We're still a family unit, but it's a very different dynamic.
That's really cool. I was thinking about, because like to your point, in 20 years, I feel like my goals will be more aligned with the people that are in my life at that stage,
Mhm.
because that'll be like a part where I'm more likely to be a mom or more likely to be a wife or something like that. And that is a route versus like what you're saying right now. It's like you're kind of going back to what you, Tara, want as
Totally.
opposed to what you want to become
Totally.
for others.
Very astute
Interesting.
observation.
Interesting.
Any other 20-year game plans that anybody would like to share? Okay, let's go back to the 5-year. So go refresh yourself on what your goals are for your 1 year. You just worked out your 20-year plan. So in the next 5 years, I'm thinking about, personally, using my reference point that I gave you just a few minutes ago, I'm thinking about how do I get more educated on equality around the world? How do I get more educated on women's rights? How do I get more educated on the United Nations and other organizations that are doing work that are somewhat similar? Where do I want to travel to go learn more about this? Who do I want to meet? How do I want to grow my network in those areas? And if you're in your 20-year plan, you can incorporate some of the big personal things too. In 5 years, do you want to start thinking, is that the time that you want to start thinking about fertility or, get married in the next 5 years?
I literally just wrote down freeze my eggs.
Yeah, freeze your eggs. I love that.
I have documents if anyone wants to understand freezing your eggs process at Google. It's very inexpensive.
It's awesome.
It's great. I'll send you the link.
I wish that
You're
was around
curious.
when I was. Yeah, look at all those nodding heads. Yeah.
All of these women are like, please.
Yeah, send it over. It's super. I can't believe how awesome the
It's-
program is.
The
here.
benefits are insane.
Yeah, and also the surrogacy is
Yeah.
also amazing. I wish I'd had those benefits when I was doing all this.
It's never going to be easier than today for women. Like today is the easiest day. Tomorrow it's harder for me to freeze my eggs. in 10 years, it's even harder for me to freeze my eggs.
Yeah.
Is what someone
Well, maybe it needs to
told
be on
me-
your 1-year plan. and
I
not your 5-year
truly,
plan.
truly, Trisha yesterday was like, I'm checking in with you in 24 months. If it's not done, we're having words.
Oh, good.
So-
That's making me feel really anxious. Just
I'll
all-
send you this link. Don't worry.
Okay, thanks.
I'll send it to you right now.
So maybe freezing your eggs is on your, Lily just moved it over to her 1-year plan. Sia, what are some, or Estancia, what are some things on your 5-year plan?
Yeah. So by that time, I also have the 30. By 30, I'm at 15, so really slow, so I need to pick it up. But I want to have visited 30 individual countries by that time. So that's one goal. Another goal is to start. I really admire Issa Rae and people like Mindy Kaling as well, who have really started things from scratch. And it always resonated with that. So I want to launch my own show, maybe on TikTok, maybe not. Always try to get in my way, but just do it and see if people like it. And that's something that I want to do in the next 5 years. And then I also want to meet someone that's really great and get married, but they have to be really great. So
They have to be really great.
super great.
I love that. I love that.
5-year was kind of harder for me. I feel like 1 and 20 seemed to be a little easier well, I thought 20 would be hard, but now 5's a little bit harder. 5 seems really soon. So I don't exactly know, and given that I kind of did just start at Google, I'm like, I don't know where I'll be in 5 years, but I would hope that, I grow in my career. But I will kind of talk more about my 20-year one, because I kind of did write down that I want to work towards being someone of influence or being in leadership. I don't know if that's still going to be Google One per se, but having some more of an influence for those around me and kind of having some experience. I think in between the now to 20, I'd like to, manage people and kind of help other people develop in their careers, but TBD on exactly what all that means.
So I actually think you just articulated a couple of things that you need to write down on your 5-year list. One of those is managing people. And one of those is figuring out how you want to influence people. So I actually really enjoy influencing people in a couple of different areas. And this is one of them that I really like. And so, Eustacia, you should really think through, do you want to influence people? How do you want to go about doing it? Do you want to have set up something like this? Do you want to, Sia's talking about influencing people through a TikTok show. There's a lot of different ways to influence people. Do you want to focus on, makeup trends or, environmental practices or dogs or think through what the subject matter is and then how you want to do that. And you don't need to know the answers to those things. I would say between now and the next 5 years is you should experiment with a bunch of different things. Right. So you can figure out what you like. So what you should write down on your 5-year list is start to experiment with that and figure out what it is you enjoy.
Yeah, I really like that. Thanks.
You're welcome. And you all do, the reason we're sharing so much is to help inspire you all and be like, oh, yes, that makes sense. I'm going to write that down for me too. Okay, we have 10 minutes left. Let's talk about 10-year. Okay, so you're the age you are today plus 10 years. So I'll be 55 years old. I think I qualify for AARP at 55. But in my case, my kids will be 20 and 22 years old. I know this isn't applicable to you guys, but my kids will be in college or out of college, finishing up college. So they will not be living in my house any longer. And that will be a totally different chapter for me than the chapter that I'm in now. And I guarantee you guys 10 years from now will be a totally different chapter for each of you than it is right now too. Professionally, possibly romantically, possibly family, possibly where you live. Like there's a lot of variables. And who do you want to be in 10 years? How do you want the people around you to feel? This is something I think about a lot, is how people don't always remember what I say or what I've done, but people remember how they feel when they're around me. So how do you want people to feel when they have spent time with you? And interestingly, I have opinions on each of you. They're all good, but they're slightly different. It's not the same. I'm not like, oh, each of you makes me feel powerful. No, that's not true, right? So each of you I feel a little different when I'm with each of you. And that's a beautiful thing. But you should think about what you want to own in this space. What is unique to you, and how can you help people around you feel? And then in the next 10 years, you should be experimenting with this too. I experimented with a lot of different things before I figured out who I am today. And who I am today is not who I'm going to be in 5 years. This is all a work in progress. And what kind of impact do you want your work to have in 10 years? Maybe you will have changed careers completely. Maybe in 10 years, you won't be at Google and you'll be doing something totally different. Maybe you're doing this right now, working at Google right now to pay off your student loans and, make some real money. And then you're going to go become a photographer, travel the world. Olivia, maybe you're going to go travel the world with a camera. I'm not saying Olivia is going to do that. I'm just throwing out suggestions and ideas for you all. Do you want to share, Lily, some of your 10-year ideas?
Yeah. I'll share 2 of them because I think they're somewhat related. One of them is that I want to be passionate about the company or product that I work on or for. Between this safe group of girls, I don't really care what phone you have. I really don't. I'm going to do a good job at my job, and I'm going to convince you about why Pixel's great.
Yeah.
But it's not my personal passion.
Yeah.
And that's fine. In 10 years, I'd like to say the opposite sentence.
Yeah.
I'd like to say that I deeply care about the product I work on. And part of that is that I really want to be in an influencing leadership position. That's not to say that I am the boss. That's not what I'm implying here, but that my contribution to a team influences other people because I'm so passionate. Those two feel really related to me, that my passion breeds influence. Because I find it hard to have influence when you don't have passion.
Yeah.
Or you have, never mind, not going to go down that rabbit hole. But yes,
Yes.
they're related.
So influence has come up a lot today. And I think it means maybe slightly different things for each of us, but I encourage you guys to think some more about what influence means for you, how you want to do that. And again, it's experiment with it. So I would go back and put that down on all 4 of my lists. Frankly, I'm going to do that. What topics? Okay, we're just about at time. Take a pause, do this, take a pause, sit back, look at your work, look at your notebook, think about how we just spent the last hour. You guys invested an hour of your life in this work. I'm loving reading your faces right now. Some of you look completely overwhelmed and a little terrified. Some of you look happy and proud. Olivia, what's coming up for you?
I don't know. I do think it's like it feels like we're also in a very uncertain time. So I feel like sometimes the exercises of like the 5-10, when so much feels like it's up in the air with like women's rights and the environment, it sometimes feels super overwhelming. So but I do think it's important to just reground ourselves in like the things that we have control over, to kind of avoid getting swept up in what we can't kind of control.
Thank you so much for that.
Mhm.
Really important. Yeah, really important. Anyone
That's
else?
I think the power of writing something down, and I know some people might use manifesting, praying about it, hoping, but that power, oh, my alarm to go to my next meeting. That power has, when you go back and look, there's, I know I've said power like 4 times now, but there's so much that goes into that where you see that this has happened or this didn't happen exactly how I thought it was, but that feeling or the fulfillment from that goal has been reached. I think that's really powerful. And it's always nice to go back and look at, to kind of recenter yourself, like Olivia said, when life is just lifing, to say like, this is what's important to me and I'm going to chase that once you like, because things always distract you and take you away from it. Yeah.
Totally. It actually is really powerful. Oh, sorry, I just did it. But it's really great to go back and look at these notes and reground yourself in what you can control and also in the big topics that matter to you, right? So this becomes your North Star. It's kind of like a manual for life. Yeah, this is as I shared before, my journals with these years worth of work in them are like, if my house was burning down, there are a few things that I would go back into the house for. And this is, or if I got to choose like 5 items out of my house, this would be in the top 5 is my notebook with all of these years. You know, I've got 20 years worth of life notes in there and it matters a lot to me. So I hope my gift to all of you is this time that we've spent together thinking this through, prompting you, and then I hope this is a practice that you keep up for yourself. And I hope, you know, maybe someday you'll remember today all being together virtually and us together in person and be like, oh my God, I remember 20 years ago or whatever, when I did my first one of these. And look what's happened in my life. Look where I am today. Because, you know, with not because of I've taken the time to write this down, but this has been, you know, a practice that has helped me achieve some of my dreams. Yeah. Have a wonderful day. I look forward to checking in with you. I'll see you at the next League of Our Own. I have Kate Johnson, Olympic medalist, runs our sports marketing. It's going to come and speak to all of us at the next League of Our Own. She obviously has done the deals with the WNBA and the NBA and all those sorts of things. And she also just signed a big deal yesterday with the Global Women's Basketball Association to help bring a lot more attention to women's sports around the world. So Google is now an official sponsor. She's a total badass. She's one of my best friends. She's also a breast cancer survivor. She just finished treatment in the last couple of months. Yeah, as I said, this forum is where I bring all the people who inspire the hell out of me and my best friends. I bring them on here to share them with all of you. So I look forward to our next League of Our Own.
Thank you, Tara. This was great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Happy Labor Day weekend.
Yes.